My first company before I was 30 to Microsoft for about $100 million. So I've done about 50 plus angel investments in a bunch of different companies. Do this. Why don't you, once you release it, we'll give a week to everyone watching this, listening to this, to post questions.
Hello everyone, welcome. David, your host here for Leverage Asia. Hello folks, welcome to Leverage Asia. Welcome to Leverage Asia, everybody. How many more unicorns can Southeast Asia sustain? Should more people be open to this kind of thing and leverage Asia in that kind of way? Or is this not meant for everybody? Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another wonderful episode of Leverage Asia. I have here today a wonderful and special guest. We have Aviram. Aviram.
Hi David, great to be here.
Aviram, if you don't mind, could you please introduce yourself to the world? Who is Aviram?
Of course. So I am by heart and by profession an entrepreneur. So I've built and sold 3 companies. The last one was a cybersecurity company called Beyond Security, which was sold to Fortra. Fortra is a multi-billion-dollar company in the US, one of the largest cybersecurity companies. I've sold my first company before I was 30 to Microsoft for about $100 million. So I've had that success early on, and that early success allowed me to start Beyond Security, which is what I really wanted to do, cybersecurity. As I said, I sold that 2021, so three years ago. What I've also been doing during this time is a lot of angel investments. So I've done about 50 plus angel investments in a bunch of different companies. And 1 year ago, I figured I should be doing something because retirement really didn't suit me. And so after a lot of deliberation and not sure what I need to do, because you and I both share this quality that we really, really hate VCs, right? So I succumbed to the dark side, and I officially became a venture capitalist. So I opened a VC called Rabbit Ventures, and that is my full-time job. I enjoy it a lot. I think there is, and I'm sure you're going to mention, and I will mention, and you'll ask me about all the bad things that we have to say about VCs, because there's a lot. But I also learned that there's a nice way to do a VC. So you can be like the good, at least I hope so. At least I try the good type of VC. I think I've met other VCs that are like that, so I became a lot more optimistic in terms of portfolio, and that's kind of why I became the VC. As I said, I've been invested a lot. I've 50 plus company portfolio. I am a very, very active. My fellow companies will tell you I'm a very, very active investor. In that I talk to them, I push them, I help them. I'm usually an early stage investor. I'm often the first check, almost always the first round. Rabbit VC, by the way, is the first round or first check in all our startups so far. So very, very early investor, and try to push them. I've had a lot of cybersecurity startups that have done really well. Cybersecurity, if anyone that's listening to this podcast has a time machine, and you're going back 10 or 20 years, invest in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has been really good to me. Just to mention one runaway success is a company called Cybellum, which happens to be LG Electronics' first investment in Israel, and that was for about $300 million. And another one that is doing well is a Korean company called Arkidraw, which is IPOing next year in Korea, and I was the first investor in both. So cybersecurity is awesome. Being early stage investor is awesome, and I decided to make that my profession and officially become a VC, which is what I did.
Your journey is incredible. My gosh. You know what? There are things about you that I did not know. I knew you were this handsome, studly, amazing VC that makes other VCs like me look bad. Yeah. But okay, just to retrace our steps and dig a little bit further into the amazing things that you've done. So you sold a company to Microsoft, right? at $100 million. That's crazy. Um, were you one of the founders there or early employees?
I was one of the founders there. I wasn't the main founder, but I was the original founding group. And this was kind of before we knew what startups were. So we didn't really pay attention to stock options and equity and all that kind of stuff, but which was okay. I still got enough money to start my own company after that. But it was fascinating and it was bootstrapped. So one other thing that I haven't mentioned is all three companies were bootstrapped until very late. So with the first company, we did bring a VC in just before we sold it to Microsoft. With the other two, they were bootstrapped, and Beyond Security actually had no investors at all, except for me and my co-founder until we sold it. So I love bootstrapping. If there's any startup that is listening to the podcast and is thinking, should I bootstrap? The answer is usually yes. And I know I shouldn't be saying that because I'm an investor, and if you're that good, I want to give you my money and take a share of your company. But as an entrepreneur, I'm a fan of bootstrapping. I think bootstrapping can almost always be done and be done really well. But again, since I've crossed to the dark side and I'm a VC, I'll stop encouraging. That was my one and only encouragement for startups to bootstrap.
Nice. I agree with you about the bootstrapping bit. I think there are certain companies that shouldn't even be looking at venture capital until much later. Others that might need venture capital money early on. Could you speak a little bit to that? I want to know your opinion or thoughts about that. So here's an amazing founder turned venture capitalist who is encouraging bootstrapping, which a lot of entrepreneurs out there might be like, okay, so you pointed out, wait, there's a little bit of dissonance here. So let's get some clarity on this. Bootstrap when, fundraise when? What is it? Do you have a kind of a rule of thumb or something helpful you can tell our audience members?
Yeah. So first of all, let me start by saying I'm doing a disservice to myself now as I start saying, because like I said, if you're an awesome startup, like I want a piece of you. And also I'm a little worried now because I'm afraid I'll be like as I'm leaving my house, I have to check my car because a lot of VCs are not going to be happy with what I say. But with all that being said, I mean, hopefully not a lot of people are watching this podcast, and then we're fine, right, David?
No, we want a lot of people to watch this podcast.
So, but yeah, I'm joking. Unfortunately, I know that's true. Unfortunately, I know you have too many people watching, and some of them are really, really excellent entrepreneurs. So, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think I'm safe because not a lot of them are not going to follow this advice that I'm going to give. But let me answer. I mean, since you and I are committed to no bullshit, right? To open discussion, let's talk about bootstrapping for a couple of seconds. So almost every startup can be bootstrapped. There's a small sliver maybe of the startups that cannot be bootstrapped, and those are the ones that either are manufacturing something, so you need to put a ton of capital when you're starting, or you're doing something so amazing that needs to be done so quickly, like so your Twitter, right? You're getting like 1 billion of users onboarding on your platform right away, and you need to grow so quickly, or else I don't know, or else you won't make it, or else you'll lose the chance, right? So these two things don't really happen because nobody manufactures nowadays anything. We don't do that. And if we have to, we do manufacturing on demand, almost always. And then, we should all be so lucky to invent the next Twitter. That's probably not the case with almost everybody watching. And everybody else can actually bootstrap, because if it was true when I was bootstrapping, it's more so 2024. You've got everything out there for free or super cheap. And everything is done on demand, right? So, David, you're pretty old. I think I'm older, but still, you remember servers, right? You remember we had like this piece of hardware that we had to buy. We had to go to a store and buy. That doesn't exist anymore. We do it on Amazon, which means we can pay like $1 and have a server and have users on it. And if we have more users, we pay a little more dollars. And if we charge them for the service, then we can scale as we grow. And again, there's almost no upfront cost in almost anything that we're doing. So almost anyone can bootstrap. Now, I'm going to skip the should you bootstrap because, like I said, I'm really getting into dangerous territory. But let's talk about let's talk about the when, right? So let's talk about some because there is one misconception about bootstrapping where some bootstrappers incorrectly think, hey, let's start by bootstrapping and then raise funding later. That's almost always a bad idea. So if you're committed to bootstrapping, bootstrap. Just bootstrap. Bootstrap, by the way, and I'll say one last thing in favor of bootstrapping, and then I have to check because I'm really worried now about my personal safety. When you're selling the company and you have 50%, you're on the cap table, you have 50%. I mean, number one, it's awesome, and number two, the outcome becomes an order of magnitude better, right? So every outcome that you see is an outcome. Typically, when you read about like this, even the numbers that I talked about, right? Usually, founders have, I don't know, 10%, right? Of that huge, still a very nice number, but out of that huge number, they have maybe 10%, sometimes less. Imagine having 50%, right? Imagine how different that makes an exit. But now I'm going to stop. Now let's talk about why starting as a bootstrap and changing is not a good idea. And this is an overlooked issue. One thing startups should understand: VCs hate bootstrap. They hate it. It's number one. It's an animal that's unfamiliar to VCs, and VCs work by pattern matching. VCs look at something and say, "Have we seen this pattern before? Do we know what it looks like?" And there's almost no patterns where bootstrap becomes this billion-dollar company. There are, but not a lot. And then if they are, they're not very famous, because why would the founder that owns 50% or 80% be famous? They want to take their $1 billion quietly, right? So VCs can't really look at a bootstrap business and say, oh, wow, that reminds me of that. No. And then the second problem is a bootstrap business is very, very different than a venture-backed business. Number one, it's profitable. Venture-backed is never profitable. You're spending money, right? You want to grow. And bootstrap sometimes grows slowly, which again, investors hate because they want to see rapid growth, right? It's scrappy. It has different culture. It's culture, again, based on profits and not growth. There's so many differences that investors look at it and say, like, we don't know what that is. We can recognize it. So now that's not to say if you're a crazily profitable bootstrap, you will get investment. I mean, call me first, right? Or call David first and call me second. Because why wouldn't we want to invest in this golden egg producing thing? But then I got to ask, like, why would you want my money? You've got your money, right? Why would you want anybody else's money? So being a bootstrap and then raising money is probably not going to happen. And you should decide very early on, are you a venture business or are you a bootstrap business? I'm not going to repeat the benefits. I'll just say, if you make that decision, make the decision and probably stick with it.
Yeah, I don't think many people will understand the golden wisdom you unleashed just now in the last 10 minutes.
Which is probably good for us, David, huh?
Yeah,
because we'll be unemployed. I mean, just imagine all these bootstraps coming up. I mean, that would suck.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, on the other hand, I don't imagine you sitting behind some dark background chair with a cat, stroking the cat and having this evil laugh. It's like, whoa, I'm going to take over the world of venture capital. I see Rabbit VC as one of the good guys out there, and I've learned this actually by talking to another founder out in New York City. And I wanted to actually dig into that a little bit about your, philosophy today as a venture capitalist. Could you share a little bit about that? What is your philosophy as a venture capitalist?
Right. So I think I'm going to say this carefully because I am 100% biased on what I'm going to say. Okay, but it's my opinion. I've got nobody else's opinion but my own. I think entrepreneurs have an advantage, and as a VC in a VC world, and I think it's a two-way advantage. It's an advantage to the entrepreneurs they're investing in, because we understand what we don't just understand. We were right there, like we were sitting where they're sitting, and it's harder for us to empathize. It's easier for us to empathize. It's easier for us to help them. We know what they need a lot of the time. We know where we shouldn't get involved. I think maybe my KPI, I think if I had to choose one, would be to not ask stupid questions for my founders, because I think this is probably the number one, as a founder, number one most irritating thing is the stupid questions from VCs, where because it's a stupid question, you have to give a stupid answer, right? And like everybody's stupid, everybody's IQ just went down just because of that dialogue, right? So I think I'm better in that sense because I know what questions are stupid and what questions are not. So that's from the entrepreneur side, and I think from the VC side, and I need to prove that part. I think I can make better investment decisions, right? Again, because I've been there, because I know what it takes to be successful. Now, the second part, I do need to prove, because there is a transition. I don't think every entrepreneur can become a VC. VC is definitely a profession. I'm learning from the professional VCs that I'm around. I've got some very good friends that are incredible VCs, and I'm looking at how they're doing it. It's like watching Michael Jordan, play the game. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's a profession, and I'm not close to being at that level. I hope I will be someday or close to it. And this is the thing that I need to learn. And this is like how to bring returns, because otherwise, why are people giving me their money? Is they expect return back. But I will say, to your point, I think the ecosystem, because it started with finance people, so that I don't think that's very much true anymore. But it started with finance people, and then it was a lot of consultants, people who were very smart but never actually ran businesses. It muddied the ecosystem a little bit, so it skewed the incentives. It made like people do stupid investments. This is all the things that I follow you on LinkedIn, and I always go like, yes, that's exactly right. And all the stupid stuff VCs do, right? I mean, they are cheap, and they do follow trends, and they mostly don't understand what they're doing. And stupid psychological tricks like FOMO work on them, and they either invest too much or invest too little, right? And I think it's, again, because it started by bankers and then consultants, and it's changing. So now there are, I think, good VCs around. I think the tide is turning, and as more and more entrepreneurs go into the VC game, and there's some very, very good entrepreneurs that are doing investments, you can find more and more really good VCs that are just good, are helpful. By the way, let's put something out of the way, because again, we're in the no bullshit zone, right? For any startup that's listening to this, I think they should know, when any VC tells you about their added value, how they're going to help you post investment, it's a lie. It's somewhere between 90% to 100% lie. So you'll either never hear from them until the IPO or M&A, or they'll bug you. You'll wish you never heard from them. And there's under 10%, and hopefully David and I are there, where there is some help to be given, right? We try to help a lot, but let's dispel with that idea of these added value VCs. I mean, what you're getting is money, and if you're getting help, that's a huge added value that you should not, maybe not expect, right? I mean, don't give too much credit to this VC pitch of like, we're so supportive. Now, I mean, with that said, again, I hope we're different. And by the way, David, I think you and I have a secret weapon. I use it a lot. I'm sure you do too. Is I tell, when I talk to a new startup that is not part of my portfolio yet, I tell them not to I tell them not to expect VCs to help. I tell them that I am different. I realize that all the VCs are saying that they're different, but my secret weapon is talk to my portfolio, right? Just reach out to any of my portfolio company and do your diligence on me. And I think every startup, every startup that's getting an investment from a VC that is not calling up portfolio company of that VC, ideally a cold call, ideally not the one the VC gave you, something else, do a reference check. If you're not doing that, well, if you're not doing that and you decided to go forward, then really don't expect anything except for money and maybe less, and maybe some hassle, right? What are your thoughts? Where are you on the? Because I know you share a lot of my negative opinions about VCs, but how do we make VCs better?
No, I agree with 1,000%. The reason I say 1,000 is everything I heard, I agree, and I'm probably sure that I agree with everything else that you didn't say. That's in the back of your mind too. I share with everything. Since you asked the question, one thing I would add is, again, I love the whole, you got to check the portfolio companies. Why not, right? Another thing I would add is, frankly, just a lot of people, I think, when they talk to VCs are just so caught up with the money. It's kind of like dating. You're so caught up with that red dress, or
Right.
the makeup she was wearing, that you're not paying attention to, let's say, the person's personality or the
Right.
things that they're doing wrong. Clear red flags that it'd be a no-no in normal situations, but because you're so at an emotional state, you tend to block it out. And I think when people are metacognitive while talking to VCs, being like, wait, I would normally not tolerate this kind of behavior, but why am I doing it now? Is because, somehow you're distracted and you give them special privileges, right? But I think we shouldn't give VCs special privileges. Yeah, that's what I think. But
I
again,
100% agree.
we're totally screwing up our profession here right now.
We look. I think we kind of are because I think VCs are getting better, and we want VCs to get better and better. And I think, for example, reference check. Like if we can get if we can get startups doing reference checks all the times, that will make VCs work harder for their portfolio companies, which is good, which is the right way anyway, right? And good thing for everybody. So I think there's good. By the way, a warning for the founders or the startups that are listening to this. So a lot of you remember the in Game of Thrones there were the children of spring, right? Children of summer. I forgot what they were called. So there's a generation of startups here who have not seen the harsh winter, maybe until recently, right? The last couple of years were a little tough, but I'm going to tell you, hey guys, you haven't seen nothing yet. It's what you've seen is nice VCs chasing you because there was so much money and not enough startups. This tide will change. It'll come back to where it was, and where it was very, very harsh VCs, super professional, screwing you out of a bunch of stuff. And this is where you see the good VCs versus the bad VCs, because the good VCs care about their reputation and about their future, and the bad VCs don't care. They care about their short-term profits. So be careful. You will. I guarantee you, if you start a startup at 2024, you will see it in your startup's lifetime. You will hear these stories, and these are horrible stories. And the way to prevent it is do the reference check. Just ask the other startups about that investor.
How did you? I know, like we just told the story of how you became a VC, but how would you recommend today amongst our audience members who are thinking, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, or hey, I want to get into VC one day? So could you share that with us? Like you touched on, hey, it was finance, consulting, and now there's a trend that's different. But could you give us a short kind of recommendation of, hey, how do I crack into VC? You've done it successfully. Do you have any recommendations? Teach me. Any thoughts on this?
So I think there's two things you have to figure out before you can become a VC. Well, there's a few. There's two big ones. So number one, you need to be an investor. You need to know what kind of investor are you, and what can you do well as an investor. So you know how they say like 90% of drivers think they're above average, right? So yeah, I think 99% of investors think they're above average investors, and that's obviously not true statistically, right? So you are not above average investor. You, I mean, the generic entrepreneur who's listening to this podcast and think about VC. You are not. You are an average at best. So find out where are you better, you know. And let me give you a hint. That's not the proprietary deal flow you think you have. You don't have proprietary deal flow. We all have the same deal flow. So what is it? What is it that you can do as an investor? And in my opinion, the way to do that is to do the entry investment. So do your own investment, risk your own money, and that is the honest way of seeing, showing, but also seeing where is it that you invest well, right? Figure that out. That's the first point. So if you don't know what you do well as an investor, then you probably are not doing very well in anything. So figure that out. And then the second thing, like I said, VC is a profession. So learn from someone. Find a way. I did it as an LP in a few funds where I got to watch the GPs closely. I just asked them for like, hey, would you let me be the fly on the wall in some of these things that you're doing? And it's easier when you're an LP because you have a little bit of strength. Maybe you can do it through friendships. Do that. See what they're doing. Learn. Again, there's a difference between Michael Jordan and me when we play basketball. There's a difference. Anyone who's looking at us can tell the difference. Maybe I think I'm like Michael Jordan when I'm playing, but nobody's going to mistake in us, in how we play. So learn those moves. Watch these professionals. Watch what they're doing. There's a lot of, I mean, David, you know this. There's so many. I want to say they're not even tricks. They're things you need to do. They're professional moves that you need to be making, and they're crucial. They're absolutely crucial. And so number one is be an investor. Figure out, because it's an investment what you're doing at the end, right? So what are you doing good? Well, this is your thesis. And then learn that profession, because you have to learn it. And I think you learn it by watching. I don't think there's any other way, because, by the way, I don't think anybody's going to give you an honest, they're not going to teach you that thing, because I don't see why anybody would. Like, I wouldn't. Anyone who's good wouldn't. Why would I give you my trade secrets? But if you get to watch those people, you'd learn it. So do those two things. Show what you've done, and then ask people for money.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. Some people don't even know. It's like the best players aren't always the best teachers either. So,
right.
No, I think that's why you have to watch them. You're absolutely right. I think that's so true. And yeah, if I may pivot this conversation even further and talking about Leverage Asia, because that's the name of the show, Leverage Asia. So, Aviram, you're clearly not Asian. I don't think you are, unless you're using some
although technically, so I haven't mentioned that I was born in Israel, so technically West Asia, but not under any common definition of the word. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, no, yeah. Technically, for our audience members, Asia includes the Middle East and
it does.
Even Russia, actually. But
right.
Yes, you're not East Asian or Southeast Asian or South Asian, right? So how have you leveraged Asia? And what I mean by leverage Asia, to clarify for audience members, is you have friendships. How have you economically used information or opportunity asymmetry to actually benefit your friendships or benefit your economic standing or your future? Could you talk a little bit about that? How have you leveraged Asia?
Absolutely. So let me start by saying something that I think is not going to be very controversial. I think Asia is the place to be in the 21st century. So that's the upcoming place. If you want to have a head start on the future, then that future is probably Asia. I mean, I'm not saying the U.S. is in decline. What I'm saying is Asia is going up, right? So I think there's a lot to leverage. To your point, to use the terminology, there's a lot to leverage in Asia. Now, Now, the one question is, what is Asia, right? Because Asia is actually a bunch of
Yeah.
countries who are really different from each other.
Yeah.
And and the reason so I haven't mentioned that, but out of my 50 plus portfolio companies, about a third are from Korea. And there's a few
Mm.
others from other places in Asia, but a lot of them are in Korea. And Rapid VC is a VC that's targeting Korean startups primarily. So I my bet on Asia is Korea, but there's a lot of other very, let's say, lucrative bets or very exciting upcoming. One of them is Vietnam, where you are. I'm looking into
Hmm.
startups there. Very, very interesting. And how I leverage. So number one, we are investors. We're in the world of investment, which means we want to buy low, sell high, and
Hmm.
buy
Hmm.
low. I mean, Asia is buy low right now. I believe people are created equal. So I don't believe in race based differences
Oh yeah.
in like how people are, right? Which means
Hmm.
you do have these same amazing founders that you have everywhere else in Asia, except you can probably get them for cheaper if you're an investor, and we want that. And the world is flat. It is easy to get everywhere if you're doing the right thing. So the way that I leverage Asia personally is finding those Korean startups, bringing them to the US, teaching them what it is that they need to do to enter the US. And I've done really well in my Korean investment. As I mentioned, one of the startups I invested in, I was the first check, and they're going to IPO in Korea next year. So I mean, if all goes well,
That's
that'll be
amazing.
a magnificent
Congratulations.
magnificent exit. So there's a lot to leverage on the domestic markets, because these are huge. I mean, Korea is the 10th largest economy in the world, and let's remember where number two and number three is. I think everybody knows that. And if you're looking for mobility, I mean, again, look at Vietnam. That place is exploding in terms of growth and IT and everything else. So leveraging Asia means going into Asia, identifying those opportunities early, and bringing them to the world market. Now, this last part is not as trivial as it sounds. The last part is
Mm.
to bringing them to the world market. There's political issues, there's cultural issues, but still, I think if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, I think not being in Asia is a mistake. It's just
Mm.
too lucrative to not be there.
I mean, how do people take advantage of this amazing opportunity of time? I agree with you about 21st century and Asia is just everything's going up. This narrative is amazing. Let's say people aren't in Asia right now,
Right.
um, but they don't necessarily want to live in Asia. How do they
Right.
take advantage of this situation? Do you have any
Right.
thoughts on this?
I do. So the barrier for Asia is also the way to penetrate Asia. There is a cultural barrier. Asia is very, very culturally different, very, very relationship based, as you know. I mean, not I think everybody knows. Where in the US, we're very transactional in everything we do. Asia is very, very relationship based. So that is initially a barrier, because you have to develop a relationship. You can't just go in, buy low, sell high. Like I said, you have to go in and develop relationships. But on the other hand, once you have those relationships, you don't necessarily have to live in Vietnam, for example, to take advantage of all the stuff Vietnam has to offer. You just have to develop those relationships. So what I would say is go in, familiarize yourself with the culture, familiarize yourself with the people, spend time. So again, this is a cliche, but some cliches are true. In Asia, relationship is measured by time. Time spent with the person. Like, how many times have you met them? How many times, and usually how many drinks have you done with that person, right? So go spend that time. When you build a relationship, it doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to. I don't think you necessarily have to live there. You can do it from anywhere. You and I now are on different places on the planet. but we're having this conversation. So yes, do invest the time, but no, you don't necessarily have to live in that place where you want to take, where you want to use your leverage
Mm.
to penetrate the market.
That is excellent advice. You can use time as money, and to
Yes.
invest in a relationship is something people can do. You're absolutely right, no matter where you are. Um, that's fantastic.
True. Although I want to say, no matter where you are, is true. But in the U.S., we can do really well with transactional relationships. So we can do really well with, a 10-minute catch-up call and an occasional email, and I've sold my company to people that I've never met, in real life. We just did a few Zooms and exchanged documents, and they paid a lot of money. Uh, and they haven't met me. They haven't met anyone of my team members. That's not going to work well in Asia. You have to meet the person. You have to spend time with them. They have to sit with them. But once you do, then you can be anywhere.
That's so true. People have to in Asia prioritize spending time here. Doesn't necessarily mean you just like send them one email. Yeah, you
Yes.
do have to actually spend the time. So there's still some, just listening to you and reflecting on this, there's still significant like high touch element to building relationships in Asia,
Right.
right?
Right.
So how much soju have you had with how many people? You
Oh my
are-
God. Oh my God. Right. So a lot. So in my case, I mean, I'm an all-in kind of person. So I don't do
yeah.
moderation really well. So I bought an apartment in Korea, in Seoul, and I started spending half of my time there. So I had a lot of soju with a lot of people, but I mean, I loved it, right? I mean, it wasn't, it was awesome. It was great. But to your point, yes, it took years until I was never accepted. I'm not still not accepted, but uh, until I was somehow a little bit, I belonged. It was okay for me to be around. So and that took time. That took time and patience. But again, once you break that barrier, you've got a huge advantage.
Yeah,
I
that's
highly
absolutely
recommend
true.
it. It's worth it.
Okay. My last kind of question about Leverage Asia is, so tell us a little about Korea. So why did you choose Korea? What is it about Korea that's special or different that you've made this all-in bet? Yeah, I asked this about from everyone, by the way, like
Right.
Vietnam, Philippines. So why Korea?
Well, they're all wrong. I mean, Korea is the place to be. So I don't know what others told you, but they're all wrong. It's, and I could talk about it for an hour. I'm a really, by the way, I'm a very patriotic Korean. So I have a huge bias on that level. But why Korea? So I think there is, in the startup world, there's things you can teach. You can teach go to market, you can teach marketing, you can teach sales, you can even teach product, and you can definitely teach programming development. Here's what you cannot teach. You cannot teach hard work. You cannot teach dedication. You cannot teach um, getting giving all you have to make your users happy. You can't teach it. You either have it or you don't have it. Korea is I don't want to say it's the only place. It's not, but there's a huge concentration of people who are like that. So if you go to Korea, not just in the startup scene, if you go to Korea, if you go to a coffee shop in Korea, you'll see everything that I just said: the attention to detail, the passion, the how much they want you, their customer, who just paid them like $1 for coffee, how much they want you to be happy with your purchase, and how attentive they are to all the little things that you're doing and not doing. You can't teach that. That is, and by the way, this is how you win as a startup. That hardworking mentality. So I'll give you like a really short example. So if you want to sell to the U.S. market, and every startup should sell to the U.S. market. That's not a question. It's axiomatic. You need to sell to the U.S. market if you want to be successful. Then that means you have to work according to U.S. time. And if you're in Asia, that means maybe late at night, early morning. Korean startups never have an objection. They never, if a customer tells them, let's have a call at 10 a.m. Pacific, then they will say, sure. And then they'll realize it's 2 a.m. and they'll set the clock and they'll wake up at 2 a.m. and they'll call. And if I watch European startups, they will not. They will say, oh, I can't do 10 a.m. It's too late in the night for me. Let's do some other time, which the customer is not going to accept, because why would they? They're the customer. I saw all this in Korea. So I think together with very, very high level of education, because universities are so important, very large economy, the 10th economy in the world, so a lot of money for pre-seed and seed to start up, very, very well connected. And also, there's one thing that I think not only Korea has, it's true for a few other Asian countries, and maybe that's your leverage Asia point, but hunger. So the one thing startups have and nobody can teach is a hunger. If you don't have that hunger, number one, I can't help you, and number two, you probably shouldn't start a startup. But that hunger I see in Korea. I don't know, I mean, I have my theories, but there's this hunger. Israel, by the way, you see this all the time. Israel has this hunger of like, we want to be. You see it, by the way, with the medals. You see which countries go nuts for medal because they want their players to get, the medal, like this hunger for, and I mean, I know every country kind of has it, but some countries go wild. So, so probably there's a correlation between that and how successful their startups are.
Oh, you know what? So point out a few really good things, and if I were to just tell me if I'm wrong. So attention to detail, right? Very, very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
This hunger, this dedication to success, waking up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to take calls. Yeah, these things are very special. You don't find that in every place in the world. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Um,
So this is where so when I came to Korea, I saw it. You notice it immediately. You see it right away. And other countries are sometimes different for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes the domestic market is too big. I think that's the problem with China, is their local market is too big, so they don't think about overseas. Again, I think that maybe if I could place two bets, my second bet would be Vietnam, because I see a lot. Vietnam is a latecomer, so the big question is, did they miss the boat? Probably
mm,
not, but it is a bit late,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they have a long way to
yeah,
go still
yeah, yeah.
to get there. But other than those, I mean, look, if you're a startup and you're listening to this, it doesn't matter where you are. You're one person. You can do it. Doesn't matter where you are. But from a macro perspective, from a country perspective, my bet is on Korea.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I wouldn't disagree with Korea, Vietnam, the whole U.S., Israel. Everything you said, actually, I agree with. Um, and I think we'd have a more interesting conversation one of these days. I'd love to invite you to one of our accelerator workshops, right?
Yeah.
And we can dig in a little deeper, because I think there's also opportunity between Vietnam and Korea, or Korea and Vietnam,
Yes.
right? And both flows, and then America. And then
Yes.
not to even mention Israeli tech coming into Vietnam and Southeast Asia, and already coming into Korea like crazy. So,
Right.
wow, this is we could talk so much about this. So I'm gonna pivot again, just because we're gonna have to have you back. Actually, I think that's what this is, because I wrote 3 pages of notes just now, and I already see a bunch of questions I couldn't ask. Just of time, let's talk about you and the future, right? So, Avram, what are you working on now, Rabbit VC? But what are you looking towards the future about that you're excited?
So Rabbit VC. So I am all in on VCs. I still do angel investment, but my main focus is finding really good Korean companies, bringing them to the US, making them big in the US. This is what my next decade plus is going to be around. Hopefully, making Korea the powerhouse that I think it should be in terms of startups. Now, with that said, I love startups from everywhere, from anywhere they are. I visit Vietnam often. I would like to see more startups in the world, and I would like to see them more successful in general. And I'm going to keep doing that whenever I can. That is my little tiny dent in the universe.
That is, it's I think the 80-20 rule, right? I think the little punch you make has a profound reverberating, magnified outcome effect. Yeah.
I really hope
Oh,
so. I really hope so.
oh no, I know so. Again, I spoke with a few founders out there, independent of knowing that they actually took money from Rabbit. They love you. They respect you so much to the point, and I think the audience should know this, to a point where I was offering free advice, saying, "Hey, I want to spend time with you," and they're like, "Oh, that's good. Let me talk to Avram about that first." I was like, "Wait, what?" They're gonna help you, and
They learn
saying you're gonna
well.
go talk
So
to.
they learn well.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
yeah,
the way.
yeah, yeah. I guess
I love it.
that is. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. What do you think? There's a lot going on in the world right now. So what's on top of mind for you? What concerns you, or what are you happy or optimistic about? What is going through the mind of Avram when he looks at the world and what's going on out there?
Right. Right. So since we have to wrap up, since I know we have like a minute or so, I'd say I'm very optimistic on where we are in the startup world and the changes we can make. So startups are everywhere. I mean, if you have SpaceX, which is a startup, essentially getting astronauts off of like the space, right? Startups can really do everything, health, everything else. So there's no limits, there's no boundaries, which is amazing to me. I want more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually really, really good, what you just said there. In fact, Avram, I have a question. This is personally me asking this question, and I again don't mind the audience listening to it. Is when can I interview you again? Okay, to ask even deeper questions, because right now we've covered being an entrepreneur. You've sold your company to amazing companies like Microsoft, and you had multiple exits, becoming a VC, sharing dirty secrets about VCs, leveraging Asia, and you didn't hold anything back, and there was no BS here. I think our audience needs to hear more of this. So if I were to promise our audience members that we're going to have you back, what would be a good kind of thing to look forward to? How should we kind of
All right.
tantalize them a little bit?
I like it. I like it. So let's do this. Why don't you, once you release it, we'll give a week to everyone watching this, listening to this, to post questions. What
Okay.
topics do you want us to cover? What questions do you want us to answer? And David and I promise on behalf of David that we will give you the most honest and direct answer that we possibly can. So we'll give a week to collect questions, and then I'll hop on a podcast with you, and we'll do part 2.
Okay, that's awesome. We'll do that, and maybe
All
we'll
right.
even make it live. Oh man.
Oh my God, I'm in. I'm for it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Avram, especially because you're calling in from Vegas. Hey, you know what? Whatever you're doing out there, hope it's successful. And
Thank you so
I'll
much.
catch you again very soon. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you, David, and see you
Okay.
again very soon. Right.
So how much soju have you had with how many people? You are.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Right. So a lot. So in my case, I mean, I'm an all-in kind of person. So I don't
Yeah.
do moderation really well.